you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics?
Then you're in the right place.
Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This
is the RoboZone podcast
with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 49th episode of the RoboZone podcast. This podcast is for Tuesday, February 20th. In this episode, our bags are packed. That is, for your robots. And now it's time to strategize and get ready for our first competitions. There are Week 0 competitions going on around the country, and for those lucky few that have practice robots or are in Week 1 events, good luck in practicing with your robot and getting your team ready for Week 1. So let's start this episode with the first update.
Now it's time for the first update.
Another update has come out since our last episode, and in this update, I will read the general note from this FRC director. It says, this update includes a significant change to R03. As written, it did not allow for minor protrusions beyond the starting configuration, and we consistently answered Q&A questions to that effect. However, we are seeing reports of group pre-inspections at which a significant percentage of teams did not realize that and built slightly oversized robots, leading to significant rework. Many teams do not have access to these pre-inspections, and our concern is that many of them will arrive at their events with slightly oversized robots, resulting in a lot of frustration and great deal of painstaking rework. To mitigate that, R03 now allows minor protrusions in the length and width dimensions. Take note, not the height dimension. This decision was not made lightly. While it does make the rule more forgiving, many teams understood that the rules as written initially and designed the robots with that understanding. Some teams caught the implications of the rule as it had been written later in the build season and invested time and resources in redesigning and reworking their robots to comply. For those teams, please accept my apologies. However, I do believe this change is better for the community because it will result in a better experience for more teams. We highly encourage everyone to read this team update number 11. We'll have it in the show notes. There are other clarifications that are in this update, but I wanted to read the note from the director because it was a very big change for our robots this year. So let's get on to the next segment.
And now, let's talk about drivers training for robots.
With me, I have a newbie to the podcasting world, which we'll introduce him in a second. So we're going to start with Jon Uren. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jon Uren. I'm coach of Team 694, the Chimeras, out of Lapeer, Michigan.
Next up, we have a big returner. His name is Andrew. Please introduce yourself.
Andrew Spiece. I'm on that team, FRC Team 5114. And in this episode, I'll be talking about my experience on Truck Down Thunder. Team 68.
And we're going to get to that in a second. And finally, our newbie, Jon, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jon Antilla. I'm the coach for FRC Team 2604 Metal and Soul out of Capac, Michigan.
I wanted to have you guys on, but one of the things that I've been struggling with as a rookie mentor is how to choose my drive team. So I wanted to have an episode covering how to do drivers training for FRC and how you guys go about choosing your drive teams. So I think I have a great group on here to do that with. JU or Jon U, we're going to start with you. What do you look at when you look at choosing your drive team for the season? Do you have the same as last season? Do you mix it up every year to see someone and give them a shot, or how do you go about doing that?
So the last 2 years we've had the same driver. Before that, it was I used to only pick like seniors, and then I started finding that like a couple years we didn't have a lot of seniors, and the ones we did have weren't interested in driving. I actually got to a point where we had a couple drivers that all wanted to drive, and so what we did was each weekend I took a different pair by themselves and kind of ran them through the same tests, and then scored them, and then just kind of compared how they reacted to certain situations and that kind of stuff. I based it off of that on who I wanted on drive team. Another part of drive team is just who's there the most, who's working a lot, who's putting a lot of effort in, who's first one there, last one leave, right? kind of mentality. And then also if I don't know if you're going to be the drive coach, but like for me, since I'm the drive coach, I want to make sure that I get along with these kids, right? They're the ones I'm spending with the most time. So a little bit of its personality too. So last 2 years I've had the same driver. And he's been awesome. He's a really hard worker. He meets all the criterias of what I just kind of talked about. But I think it's all just team preference, what students you have to pull from. And, like I said, we've had 3 or 4 different ways of picking drive team. And at the end of the day, it's whatever ends up working more for your team. For
this year, for clarification, JU, I am actually the drive coach because I'm the only mentor on the team. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm the drive coach. I'm the medic. I'm the technical lead. I'm the electrical lead. I'm the coding lead. I'm that revolving hat rack. So Andrew,
did you say medic?
No, yeah, medic. I am a firefighter. I'm a licensed firefighter in the state of Michigan. So
I just thought you meant you had a really accident-prone team.
Oh, no, the only accidents actually have happened to me this year. So I've actually come out with a bruise or cut, and every time I'm doing my job right. I'm protecting the kids. So yeah, exactly. Andrew, how have you chose your drive team?
Jon, you made some good points about, your team and what your team resources are, right? Like, and I'm learning that a lot this year. The team that I'm on now is significantly smaller than the team that I was on before, about 10 to 12 kids less. The team that I was the drive coach on, we had 30 to 35 students every year. So there was a large pool of students to pull from. And one thing that I really wanted to every year, it was a real challenge because, to be honest, any student that's really into FIRST and have been doing it for a while really want to be the driver, right? Like the driver is your quarterback. If you compare it to football, the driver is your key person out there making some of the most crucial decisions for your team on a match-to-match basis. When I went to look at selecting my drive team, I wanted to make it I wanted all the students to feel like they had a chance to do so. And that's one thing that I really took a really strong preference to. So one thing that I would do is from the year before, I would make sure we would have a practice chassis or a previous year's robot to drive. I realize a rookie team wouldn't have that. But as you go into next year, make sure you have at least a drive base for them to drive so that you can get out there and see some of those basic skills being used, getting everyone that opportunity to get out there on the sticks. One thing that I've noticed over time is there's a lot of kids that are good at driving robots with these controllers, right? Like they play video games, they get it pretty quickly, and you'll have a large group of students that do really well driving the robot. So it really isn't what happened to me was it wasn't necessarily the student who could drive the robot the most because they were all at a pretty equal level at some point when they first come into the robot. So I had to decide based on what I feel are way more important items on top of just driving the robot. What kind of leadership skills do you have? Are you going to go out there and boast? Are you going to, I think the famous quote is, when you lose, you say nothing. When you win, you say even less. What kind of attitude does the student have? Are they going to have the grades to miss school? They're missing every Friday of school. Well, one thing we felt really strongly was that a student, if they were failing a class, we wouldn't let them miss Friday. So that was really important to our team. I had to make sure that student's grades were up. I had to make sure that student was coachable. Do they follow instructions? Can they take instructions from someone else? My role as a coach out on the field was to direct traffic. And they needed to listen to me. They needed to understand what the roles were. Like the drive coach is looking for something completely different on the field than the drivers are. So what I would always explain to them is I got to do my role on the drive team as well. And you need to be able to listen to me and I'm going to have to make strategic decisions on the field because I'm watching the whole game. I need you to focus on our robot. So I needed them to be able to follow instructions. You needed them to be able to know the rules, right? Like if they don't show up knowing the rules and have studied the rules and know what the rules are, how are they going to know not to cause a foul? How are they going to know what the questions to ask if they have to go up to the question box? A mentor can't go up to the question box. A student has to go up there. Now I'll talk with them and I'll mentor them on how to approach it with the question, but they need to know what the question is because then they'll feel the question and be able to answer it correctly. They need to be able to feel the game and understand that game, so they need to know the rules. I highly recommend some kind of rules test. There's a million of them out there. Every team across the country has made a Kahoot. Team 1678 puts their rules tests out every year. What I really like about their rules test is it's very application-based, right? So it's not so much memorizing the rules and knowing all the vocabulary. They put scenarios into their questions. Their test is really hard, and you're going to compete against this team. And their test is so hard that in order to be a driver on their team, you have to score a 90 on that test. I'll give you a hint. I know the lead mentor on a team that took that test this year and got a 68%. It's really important. And sometimes the adults really think that they know the game. But if you haven't dug through those rules, there's going to be nuances that you're not going to catch. You've got to get in there. You've got to know the rules. The coach needs to know the rules. The students need to know. Everyone needs to know the rules so we're all on the same page. Knowing terminology, being able to discuss things because you know the terminology on the field. So to me, there were all these things that weren't related to driving the robot that I took very seriously. These kids are going to be in really important matches. If you have a really good robot, what if you're really good at doing something and you end up on the world stage and you're competing on you go to Worlds and you have to compete in Einstein? That's a lot of pressure for a freshman or sophomore. Once you decide who your drivers are, you need to sit down and talk to the people who weren't drivers that you did not select, and talk to them about why and how they can improve. One year, the last year I was on Trucktown, I actually had to make a decision that my best driver was also the person who needed to lead the pit crew. That was tricky. You had to make a decision. My best kid on the robot versus my best kid on the stick. That was a tough decision. And when you're on a big team like that, you've got a pit crew and you've got a drive team, and they're separate because you've got so many kids.
So, Jon and Antilla, tell us how Metal and Soul goes about choosing their drive team.
Well, we've tried a number of different ways in the past. We've been a team now going into our 11th year here, and like Andrew said, our school system is small. In fact, our school's population is almost half of what it was 10 years ago when we first started the program. So it's smaller, and usually there's only enough people want to be on the drive team as the number on the drive team. So there usually isn't too big of a competition for who's going to be the driver and who's going to be the operator and who's going to be the human player. I usually only get 3, maybe 4 students that even are interested in being part of the drive team for one reason or another. But in the past, we've had more students on the team, so we've had to deal with trying to select a drive team. And the first thing is academically eligible. We have academic eligibility requirements to even to go to competition regardless of what position you are in. So that's part of the process for determining it. And then we use the off-season events like Kettering Kickoff, and we do an event in Canada, the Stemley Cup, where we invite the new students on the team, anyone who wants to actually go out and compete on the field in a competition match, and let them get a feel for it and make their decision if that's something they like doing or if it isn't what they thought it would be. And so it kind of it really does, at least in our team, kind of settles itself very easily. We haven't had too much issues with having to make the hard choice of selecting a driver.
When Kettering Kickoff comes around in September, I'll be your human player.
Yeah. We'll get Jon, Andrew, and me, and we'll just form a team, and we'll go out there and wipe everyone.
Well, the mentor match is usually scheduled for Kettering too, and Kettering Kickoff also. So
yeah, we'll take on Clinton and Brandi.
Oh, we got to take out.
Love that grudge match. I can see T-shirts right now. So, Jon Uren, you told us a little bit about how you choose your team, right? Now that you know, do you know who your drive team is at this point in the season?
I have a rough idea.
Okay.
My driver and operator from last year again performed really well this season. One thing I didn't mention, and this sounds kind of silly, I always kind of gauge which students I want on drive team by which one always takes the trash out when it's full, because that's the awesome student who's looking around and like, oh, if I'm not doing anything, I'm not just sitting there on their phone, they're actually getting up and they're doing stuff. So I got a couple of those kids right now that I've been kind of watching, and I have one student in particular who really stepped up this year. So my human player and technician is, I'm still not 100% sure on, but I think I got my operator and my driver locked in.
Good. So one of the follow-up questions I had for you guys is the people that are actually coding the robot, do they make good drive team members, because they know everything about that bot, right? Because they're programming it. So
Last year, sorry.
No, as a rookie mentor, I was just trying to figure out what the best approach was.
So last year I had my human player was also my programmer, and that's not the first. It might have been the first time that's happened. But it was actually kind of nice. It wasn't like a requirement or anything. It just so happened she was one of the ones who worked really hard and was always there. And so it was kind of nice being behind the glass. And if there was an issue or if I thought there was a problem, one of the closest students to me was the person who wrote the code, right? So I could be like, hey, I need help fix this, because I am by no means a programmer. So when there's some weird issue going on, I need to grab that student and rely on them. So for me, it was kind of nice. But again, I wouldn't just lock in for that, if there's other outstanding qualities of other students. And
Andrew, you alluded a lot about how you made your drive team decisions in the past. So I'm going to ask you a current question. What are the drive teams really going to have to look for when it comes to power up? What are the things that on the field that it's going to be things that are going to really throw a drive team member,
the scale. Do not hit the scale. Like, that's the first thing. Like, watch that scale, man. Like, that scale is going to be coming down, and if your robot's tall enough to hit it, you do not want to hit that scale. When you're going to, it could slow you down. It could do some crazy things. It could cause you a penalty. I'll cause you a foul. I'm sorry. That scale is going to get in the way, possibly when you're going to climb at the end, or getting up on the platform. So that if it's lowered on the side that you're trying to get up on, and you're going at an angle, it's a really weird angle to see. So really watch your angles on that scale and make sure you're not hitting it. Plus, there's a lot of spots where you're not going to be able to see the cube while you're trying to pick it up, right? I'll give you an example. If you're trying to pick up a cube on your side of the field, but out towards the middle, some of those stationary cubes that are there, it's going to be tricky to see, and you're going to be driving. In a lot of cases, the robots are designed to pick up the cube from the front, so you're going to be in reverse, right? In a lot of cases, the kids are going to have to be able to pick up those cubes effectively. Some other things, being able to get them into the vault effectively, right? Like doing that quickly and effectively. And it's a weird place to drive. Like, you're driving again backwards, right? To put it in you, put it in your driver station. So being able to drive the robot backwards, or if your robot's designed in such a way where you back into it, great. But there's a lot of robots are going to be built to drive forward on their cube manipulator, and being able to drive it in reverse, right? When you're coming back towards you and your sticks are a little backwards, right? So those, I think, are the things to watch for. Plus, once you get into big matches, you're going to have to be able to work the other end of the field. Bigger matches, you're going to have robots are going to be able to hold down certain sections of your side of the field. And eventually there will probably be some matches in the big matches where you're going to be able to have to navigate the other end of the field, being able to get them out of the loader station and being able to get them and try to kind of defend that switch on their side.
And Jon, Antilla, do you point on that? Do you think there's other things that we're not accounting for yet?
Well, there's always stuff that you learn in week 1 and week 2 on how to actually play the game versus how you think it's going to get played. So that's hard to say. I just think the field is relatively free of bumps, with the exception of that cord management thing that they have on there in the platform. It's a relatively flat field. And it is pretty open, at least on the business side of scoring on your side anyway, including even the switch. Where it gets tricky is where on the opposite side of the scale from where your driver's team is. If you don't have a camera or something, you're probably at a disadvantage as far as being able to see some of the cubes and some of the other potential obstacles or whatever. But I really don't have a whole lot of experience myself as a driver, and I've only been a drive coach a couple of the years out of the 10 that we've played so far. So I don't really have that a big perspective on that one.
Jon Uren, I'm not going to ask you about the difficulty of the field. I think that's something that you and me covered already, and something that I want to follow up with you when we see each other at Kettering Week 1, because we're not competing there, so we can actually have a conversation while we're watching, right? So
Sure.
the doozy question I have for you guys is not related to drive coaching actually, or drive teams. One of the questions one of the team update things that came out this week was with R03. Now, I would just want to know, because I've read a lot on Chief Delphi, and there's two avenues that people are going. How do you think that really impacted this year, or how people are looking at this year? Do you think there's any impact that it's now that people can be a little bit oversized compared to what the original starting configuration was?
I think with that whole oversized thing, the way we actually made our chassis a little bit smaller because of it, right? And we didn't extend to where we normally would have been, and then they came out with that adjustment to the rule. So I don't think so. I think the reason why they adjusted the rule is a lot of teams didn't understand it, right? So I think the majority of newer teams were they built their chassis and they would have showed up to their first competition, and they would have had to have been a half-inch smaller or a quarter-inch smaller or whatever, depending on what kind of bolt heads and stuff they have sticking out. And that would have been a problem for them. So I think they did that purposely just to kind of help the majority of people who are struggling building a robot not also have to go to their first competition and not make it through inspection the first time.
Andrew, do you agree to that, or do you have a different viewpoint on it?
Yeah, my take on it is probably the same thing. Like, for many years, I don't know how many teams I've seen show up at a competition, and all of a sudden they've got to cut their chassis. I mean, let's be real. The teams that are doing that are the newest teams. Those are the teams you don't want to turn off to first, right? Like, you don't want to make their first competition so overwhelmingly challenging over a minuscule amount of size. It makes a lot of sense I'm really glad the GDC was actually being a lot more flexible on this, and really looking at the big picture for first. So,
Jon, Antilla, do you think that more teams should have access to pre-inspections? Should they invite FTAs or robot inspectors out to their build facilities to make sure that, they can catch things early? I mean, that's something that I thought about doing, but
in my experience, we've never had any, really significant issues with the inspection process, because we do our own inspection, and I, as a mentor, act as the lead robot inspector and have the team go through it. Matter of fact, that's how that's part of how I choose who's going to be on the pit crew, is who is versed well enough on the design of the robot in order to be able to go through the inspection process. But that said, I did want to chime in on the original question that I am a little bit disappointed that they went and changed the rules like that mid-season. I would have rather them give the newer teams some leniency at an event, but not necessarily change the rule, because to me, that's rewarding. In a sense, it's rewarding a team that didn't follow all the rules. I can see some leniency for new teams, and certainly Andrew's point about you don't want to turn off new and rookie teams because of something like that. I get that, but at the same time, a 2 or 3 or 4 or 10-year team that has that problem probably needs to read the rule book better than they had. So, or account for fasteners and designs, because in the real world that does make a difference. And if your product does not meet specifications, there's penalties involved with that in the real world, and it should follow through in this, because that's what this program is designed to do.
I'm so glad that we can just have an open discussion, but we can have a constructive discussion, and everyone can share their own opinion. But at the end of the day, we want, I'm not just saying this because I'm a rookie, but we want teams to be able to compete, and at least those teams don't have to worry, or at least we'll have a full field, of everyone to compete, and we won't have to worry of people chopping things at the end, unless they broke.
I'll be honest, like, the teams that we're talking about, number one, aren't listening to this podcast. Number two are just trying to make it, right? Like,
we're trying to get them to listen to the podcast, Andrew.
right.
Just
Like, no offense to the podcast. The podcast is great. The new teams are just like figuring out, okay, what's next, right? Like, how are we going to get all the kids to competition? How are we going to work with the school to get our reimbursements so that we can get the money that we just spent on our robot figured out, right? Like, I know a rookie team right now that it's their first year and the mentors aren't getting along, and they've got to figure that out because they're all new to each other, right? Like, there's all these other things that they're trying to sort out on top of figuring out these rules, that this stuff's going to be overlooked. I'll never forget. It was I think the second or third year of a team that I was mentoring. I mentored them their rookie year, and it was their second or third year, and they built a really tall robot, and then they made it to Worlds, and they went to go put it in a crate, and it was too tall to put in a crate. In order for them to make it small enough to fit in the crate, they would actually have to take the whole robot apart. So they had to rebuild the robot at Worlds. So like, I wasn't thinking about that. It was like their second year. The last thing I was thinking is, even as the experienced mentor, remembering there's a lot of sticking things to remember in that rule book, right? Like, I didn't catch it, I didn't think about it, and then all of a sudden, boom, a crate sitting there, and we got to fit it in the crate. So this is a second year team. They make it to Worlds, and for us veterans, when we go to read the rule book, it's kind of funny. We go through the rule book reading it for the things that have changed. Yeah, an experienced team would know that they have to have some way to take the top off the robot so it fits in the crate, right? A new team had no clue, right? Like, that's the last. They didn't even think they were going to Worlds. Half the time they didn't plan for the money for Worlds. So I'm helping them raise their money to get there. You're doing the right thing. You're reaching out to other people. Keep reaching out. Don't reach out to one person. That's one thing I think I can take from that is, if you're being mentored from a team, be mentored from multiple teams. I bet you an engineer, because I wasn't like a head engineer on Trucktown, would have caught that it needed to be in that size, right? So ask multiple people, talk to different types of people on teams, and try to get multiple perspectives, because we miss stuff. We're still human, right? Like,
right. And you have Chief Delphi if you ever need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although,
ask lots of questions is my best advice.
All right. So I got one more question for you, and we can let you go. So, John, as you sign out, tell us how to follow your team, right? And then tell us what state your robot is right now. We're recording on Monday night, the 19th of February. It's the day before bag day. Are you guys going to make it into the bag complete, or are you going to work on stuff afterward?
So I'm down the hall from where they're working on the robot right now. So as of an hour ago, when I walked out of the room, they were driving around, scoring cubes in the scale and the switch. They were messing with autons a little bit. We have almost a completed practice bot, so we're not too worried about autons and stuff. And then the production hanger probably isn't going to make it on the production robot that's going in the bag. We'll probably have that as our withholding allowance. But other than that, we, for the most part, have everything together and working good and looking good. So, and then where you can follow us is First 1684 on Facebook, Chimeras 1684 on Twitter and Instagram, and then our YouTube page is First 1684. So any of those avenues, and you'll be able to follow us.
All right, Andrew, you're up next.
Our robot, Team 5114 Titanium Tigers, scoring the cubes in all of the different areas, switch, scale, vault. We have a special edition that you'll have to come and see at Kettering. Let's just put it this way: we might not be the only robot going up. I think I just gave it away, didn't I? Anyways.
Yeah, I think so.
So no, we're doing good. We've got drivers selected. We're excited. We're finishing, last minute touches plus making spare parts right now. And then your first competition, you're going to come back with something you want to fix. Put a plan together and fix it. One thing you always want to remember is that your robot is never finished, and it's a scrap metal. And one of my favorite coaches, this is one of his favorite sayings, that it's scrap metal is just a matter of when. So anyways, so you can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on our website, FentonRobotics5114.com.
Jon Antilla, tell us how Metal and Soul is, where your robot's at, and then how we can follow your team online.
So our robot is, our team is going to be making very good use of the withholding allowance on unbag time to get things finished off. So I'm not going to say anything more about that. it's been a struggle this year as far as the robot coming together for whatever reason. We are on Facebook, metalandsoul. I think it's metalandsoul.org is our website, and you can follow us on Facebook, and we also have a Twitter handle, Metal and Soul.
Now is the RoboZone Rookie Rundown.
We're now bag day is today the not when we're recording this, but when someone's listening to it or thereafter. Tell us the the 5 things last week that teams should have done to get ready for bag day.
All right, so your robot is in the bag. One thing that the EngiNerdz have always had as a tradition is we take the day after bag off. It is the day of rest. The world has been created. It's in the bag. You can't touch it. Take a day off. Do something fun. Hang out with your friends. Hang out with your family. Go to the movies. Have a nice dinner. Do something to celebrate the fact that you made it.
We're going to have a LAN party.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
They pulled everything, and we're down to the get-go. And we're recording this a day earlier, so seriously, I know we're going to be down to the wire. So I say, Coach, we can have a LAN party. That's what you promised. I said, yep, let's go. Let's play some Halo.
Exactly. I think, you've worked so hard over the last 6 or 8 weeks, however long, you've been working and prepping and getting ready and doing all the things to build this robot. Everybody deserves a day off to have fun. And whether you do it together with your team like you're doing or what the EngiNerdz do it's a whole day off. I think I might even mute Slack for the whole day.
Oh, wow. That's I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. So,
okay, what's number? That's number 1. What's number 2, Brandi?
All right, number 2. We talked a little bit last week about your withholding allowance. So you're going to look in the robot section of the manual, robot section 22. It starts on page 73. We talked last week about the fact that you do get a 30-pound withholding allowance. Now, for teams who are getting ready to go to a week 1 event or a week 1 regional, or even just thinking about getting ready for their unbagged time, I wanted to talk a little bit about your withholding allowance and preparing for unbagged time. So if you are lucky enough to be able to be in the district system where you get a little bit cheaper events, but you also get unbagged time, planning for that unbagged time. It is only 6 hours, and 6 hours, as we know through this season, 6 hours flies by like a minute when you're trying to get things done. So a couple of points that we wanted to talk about adding on to last week is planning your unbagged time. Deciding as a team what you want to do with your unbagged time and laying out all of your materials, laying out your CAD drawings if you're going to have that, laying out all of the tools that you're going to be working with, and getting everything prepped ahead of time that you can. We talked a little bit about your withholding allowance, and maybe that is something that you want to go from having outside of your bag to onto your robot, so that when you get to the event, it's already on there and you're not using your open pit time to apply this. So we really encourage teams to really get organized and come up with what their priorities are with your withholding allowance and your unbagged time. We get one of those big notepads and write on there what we want to get done, and we actually assign jobs to specific people. So we might say on our team, we need to do certain things on the chassis. Our chassis section leader is going to be doing that, and then one other person is going to be helping them. We might need to be doing things on our arm manipulator, our cube scorer. So Noah, our our end effector section leader, is going to be working on that with this certain mentor, so that we know exactly when we're working, hopefully in parallel, not in series, who's doing what and when and how long it's going to take.
Sweet. Number 2. So what's number 3, Brandi?
Number 3, deadlines are approaching for these events. I mean, you're going to look for your pre-orders. We talked last week, Pete, about how it would be a great thing for your team to utilize pre-order meals. And in Michigan, all events have these. And at most regionals, you're going to have the option to do these pre-orders. The deadline for that is coming up. So if you are going to do that, start making sure that your orders are finalized. And one more thing that you need to think about that I forgot to mention last week is, how are you going to pay for this? Is your mentor going to put it on a personal credit card if they accept credit cards? Are you going to get a check written from your school? Are you going to pay cash? How are you going to pay for this? So that is something that, I'm sure throughout the build season you've been doing budgeting and how to pay for things. But this is just one more thing that you need to think about how you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, sure. We thought all about that while we were trying to sweat it out and get our robots built.
Exactly.
All right, number 4, Brandi.
All right, number 4 is whoever the logistics person on your team is, your team management person, needs to make sure, are you set with hotels, your field trip days at your school, all your permission slips, your transportation, your food before the events, after the events? Are you all set with these things? Think about anything that you might incur within the day and just double check to make sure that you're doing okay with it. Competition is, less than 2 weeks away right now. And so it's going to come up on you fast. So make sure that you are all set with those things. It never hurts to double check. It never hurts to make another phone call or to send a quick email just to confirm. There's nothing worse than getting to your hotel and realizing that your rooms were given away.
So what's number 5, Brandi, from last
Number
week?
5. We've talked a lot about practicing. And, once your robot's in the bag, if you haven't had the resources or the opportunity to either borrow or build a practice bot, we still encourage you to check out week 0 events. There's already been a couple that have happened, a week -1 and a week -2 event that has happened. And basically, if you hear week 0, -1 or -2, that means that they're unofficial events that are taking place and they're happening all over the country. If you are in Michigan, Kettering does have a week 0 event that I believe the registration for it is closed in full, but maybe you could watch it. Send a couple people up to the Kettering First Center to watch, or maybe you could watch some of the week 0 events that have taken place. There was just one in Bedford, New Hampshire this past weekend. So you can take a look at the game and try to kind of see how the game is going to be played out. Learn the game. It's really hard to read the rules and understand how the game is going to be played without actually seeing it. I know me, I'm a visual person. I like to see things, not just read things. So this is a really great opportunity for your students on your team. Maybe if you are testing a scouting system, for you to try to test it using the matches that you can watch on the live streams. Looking for the pitfalls in the game. Where are robots getting stuck on the field? Where is it that you see people making mistakes frequently? What do you notice that teams are doing that you want to try to prevent your team from doing? And then the other way around. Where are teams finding successes on the field? How can you incorporate those into your team, either as the drive coach, as a mentor, as a student, as a parent on the team? What can you do by watching this to kind of learn vicariously instead of always having to learn the hard way?
And if anyone's in Michigan, Kettering Week 0 is an amazing event. I mean, it's crowded. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people watching. Lends itself to lessons learned.
And is RoboZone going to be there this year at the Week 0 event?
I will be there. I will be there with a microphone and a camera in my hand, like I always am. And we were there last week. I can't, and I won't put everyone out there right now, but I'm sure that we'll have at least me's going. So if someone's listening to the podcast right now and they missed the opportunity to go to the Kettering Week 0 event that Saturday, they'll be able to get some information from you guys about it in a couple weeks then. Of course.
Awesome.
Yeah, because the TV shows are right around the corner. So, I mean, we got to start prepping,
I agree.
TV production. So what is those are the 5 things from last week, Brandi. What are the 3 things now? You mentioned one, which is the day off, and I'm sure everyone's going to utilize that. But what are the 3 things that a rookie team would want to focus on this coming week, besides a week 0 event?
Okay. So number 1 is preparing for your events. Speaking simply from a robot perspective, once you've hopefully been practicing with your robot, or if you get an opportunity to go to a week 0 event, or you get an opportunity to do some things with it, or while you're unbagging, things are going to break on your robot. And I understand that you can't anticipate everything, but you might be able to look at your robot and say, what are some of our most likely fail points? And start thinking about ordering some spare parts. There are a lot of things through a lot of companies. I know Vex, the Robot Space, Andy Mark, everyone right now, because there are so many teams using a lot of the same resources, a lot of items are out of stock. So start planning ahead now for things like, what if you need to replace some of your wheels? What if you need to replace bearings? What if you need to replace motors? those kind of things, and start looking at that and anticipating that, because some of the lead time on receiving some of the things may be between now and when competition hits.
That's brilliant. Brilliant, Brandi. Number 2.
Number 2, awards. I know it seems like the competition is so far away and you're thinking to yourself that awards are the furthest thing from your mind. But now that the robot's in the bag, hopefully you've got a little bit more brain power to think about awards. One of the awards that I really encourage rookie teams to think about is the Rookie All-Star Award. If you are in a district system, if you win the Rookie All-Star Award, then it qualifies you for your regional championship Rookie All-Star Award. If you are at a regional, then it qualifies you for the World Championship to compete for the Rookie All-Star Award. So basically, what is the Rookie All-Star Award? It is a rookie team who looks like they've been doing it forever. A rookie team that you wouldn't know was a rookie, that appears to be a veteran team. It's basically, when it comes down to it, it's the Chairman's Award for first-year teams. They're looking at what are you doing in your community to raise awareness for STEM education. They're looking at what are your students doing to be inspired. What are you guys doing to spread the message of FIRST and create a sustainable program that is creating leaders and people who are respected for what they do. So you're probably thinking to yourself, I'm a rookie team. We barely got a robot together. How am I even going to think about this award? I strongly encourage you to think about what makes your team unique. Every single team has something about them, a story, a specific event, something that they had to go through, a challenge, anything about them that makes you unique, and go off of that. The best thing in this is something that students are passionate about on your team. At events in your pits, the judges will be walking around from pit to pit to pit, and they really just want to have a conversation with the students on the team. Occasionally, they might ask a mentor a question or two, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, they just want to have a conversation with the students, and they just want to get to know the students on your team. So my personal opinion is, if you are a mentor listening to this, talk to your students about how to talk to other people. Teach them about shaking hands, teaching them about looking in the eye, teaching them about making contact with these people, making a connection with these people. When you're talking to the judges, find a way to connect with them so that they will remember you. And I think a really great way for you to do that is to put some people in the pits who are very confident in talking to judges, and maybe some people who might be a little bit shy, have them shadow those people. Have them answer a few questions now and then, but make sure that you have somebody in your pits that is there to talk to judges, not just people who are there to work on the robot. Because there may be a time when your robot is broken and a judge comes around and wants to talk to you, and having someone there that is willing and available to talk to them is a great idea.
That's a good idea. And Brandi, can you remind me, in Michigan, what is the Rookie All-Star Award get? Does it automatically make you eligible for states?
It does not qualify your robot for states. It only qualifies you to apply for that award at states. So at the district level in Michigan, if you win the Rookie All-Star Award, you get your trophy. You get, I believe it's 7 points for the district ranking system. And then in addition, you will interview for this at the Michigan State Championship. So just like teams go in for a chairman's interview, the team that wins Rookie All-Star for every district event, all 26 or 27 of them, will go in front of a judging panel and give a 5 to 7 minute presentation with a 5 to 7 minute question and answer period. And then from there, the judges will choose, I believe, either 2 or 3. It's going to depend. I haven't seen the exact numbers on it this year. And those Rookie All-Stars from the Michigan State Championship will qualify for the World Championship.
Wow. So, I mean, 7 points is a big thing to have, right?
That's a lot of points. Yes.
Right. So, I mean, how many points do you get when you win an event? Isn't it 3?
I do not remember.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Points for making it into each level of the eliminations.
Okay.
So you get a certain number of points for being an alliance captain. You get more points for advancing onto the semifinals, onto the finals. You get more points for winning awards and those kind of things as well.
But 7 points is a huge thing.
7 points is a lot of points. Yep. And something to keep in mind is that you might not have an opportunity to tell the judges everything you want to tell them when they come around to your pit. So it might be a great idea if you've got someone on your team that's interested in marketing to create a one-pager, a brochure, a one-sided piece of paper about your team and a little bit about your robot, and make sure that you're focusing on that thing that you've decided as a team makes you unique. Include lots of pictures, not a lot of text, maybe some bullets and some easy figures for teams or for the judges to see. But pictures are always good because they're going to see your face and they're going to remember the faces of the students that they talk to, and having a picture or a visual to take back with them is also going to help you keep them in the forefront of their mind.
Amazing. So what's number 3?
Number 3 is Dean's List interview prep. So if your team decided to nominate 1 or 2 students, sophomores and juniors on your team for the Dean's List, as we've talked about before, you will be assigned an interview slot at either your district or your regional, and the students will go in front of the judges for a 5 to 7 minute interview, depending on the number of people that they have to interview and the competition that you're interviewing at. And again, this goes back to, this isn't an interview like a job interview where you're trying to impress someone. It's your opportunity to talk to the judges and discuss the impact that you have had on your team. Your presenters, when they go in for their Dean's List interview, need to be confident. Yes, humility is good, but also understanding that they've made an impact on the team and that they're a leader and that their mentors and the students on the team decided to elect them as their nominee obviously means a lot. For them to be passionate about FIRST is so important, and for them to talk about the things that they believe have been contributions to their team is definitely key.
Amazing things to bring to light, Brandi, and that's why I love having you on here. So I know we've done this 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks now, and as these weeks go on between week 0, after week 0 and week 1, if there's anyone that wants to get a hold of us, how could they get a hold of you to, tell a question they may have as a rookie team that we can cover on the podcast? How could they reach out to you?
So you can find the EngiNerdz at team2337.com. There's a contact form on there, and if you fill it out, it goes directly to my personal email. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can send me a message on there. I'm at the Robot Space a lot, so if you ever shop at the Robot Space, I'm there, and I just love being able to talk to teams and helping teams out. It seems like every single day I get a different email from a different team about a different thing. And I think, even though I'm not an engineer and my background is in elementary education, I just think that, working with these high school students, it's difficult for me to find my place and to find something that is a valuable contribution to my team. And I think that, over the years, I've definitely developed a role where what I do is important for our team and it's value added to other teams. And I just really love sharing my story and sharing the information and the lessons that I've learned, the good and the bad, with other teams so that they can be as successful as possible.
And we'll keep having you on this until the season ends, Brandi. If you're willing, I will have you on here. We can have the rookie roundup every week until then the season, because rookies are going to be competing. Maybe we can, interview some rookie mentors between you and me, as a potential thing that we can do through the season to see how rookies are learning. So I just want to keep fostering that, initiative and going forward to get rookies, because I'm one. So I'm constantly learning. And you were there at one time.
Oh, yes. It was a long time ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And I think that's a lot of the reason why Clinton and I continue to do what we do for rookie teams, is because it's very difficult. And, there's such a push to start new teams, and sustaining them is such a difficult thing, especially at the rate of growth that we've seen in FIRST with the success of this program and the impact that it has had on students and mentors. And I just think that continuing to foster those first-year teams, and even when they become second-year teams, you lose so much of that cushion where you don't have the rookie roundup anymore. You have nothing for sophomore teams. So we just continue to do what we can do and push what we can push and help where we can help, and just hope that it makes a difference.
And thanks for coming on, Brandi. Is the EngiNerdz going to Kettering Week 0?
Yep, we will be at the Kettering Week 0 event with our practice bot. We are signed up for the morning session. So if you'd like to come and see what we're up to, you're more than welcome to. And then tomorrow night, we have all of our partners coming to premiere to have the big unveiling of our robot. So keep an eye on social media tomorrow night to see if you can get a peek at the EngiNerdz new robot.
And that's Tuesday night because we're recording a day early. So
That is
Tuesday
correct.
night.
Yep, that's correct. So when you watch, when you guys listen, it'll be, we wish all of those teams success and talk to you guys next week.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
Up next is the RoboZone Team of the Week.
For this week's Team of the Week, I had a student on a team actually email me and recommend their team as Team of the Week. So, we want to congratulate FRC Team 2512, the Duluth East Daredevils out of Duluth, as our Team of the Week. If you want to follow the Team Daredevils, we will leave the link to their social media in our show notes. But I would like you to go out to Chief Delphi right now and look up their FRC Field Simulator version 0.9, which your team can actually simulate their driving on a power-up game. It's amazing. So thank you and congratulations to FRC Team 2512, the Duluth East Daredevils. And with that, ends the 49th episode of the RoboZone podcast. You can follow us on SoundCloud, iTunes Podcasts, and now Google Music. Thank you for listening. We look forward to talking to you next week, and get ready for some FRC action.
Thanks for listening to the RoboZone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at RoboZoneTV.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.